Del Ray Cross here. Unbelievably, this very long project of poetry that I've written and continue to write, which has over 4,100 poems in it, that I started writing in 2002, started blogging in 2005, middle of 2005, 18 years ago. 21 years ago I started writing it. I have nearly less than 3 months away will have every single one of these pieces up to present recorded individually for this little silly project I've been doing, probably mostly for me, but there have been people, thank you very much for those of you who have, who've seemed interested and been reading it and subscribing to it and whatnot. And I haven't even really begun to advertise it, but I'm so proud of it that I will be advertising it, and I will be making a production out of it, which I never do, except I used to do that for the magazine that I edit called Shampoo, which has been unfortunately on hiatus for a long time for various reasons. That will be over, hopefully, at some point, but I'd like to say really soon. But I'm waiting on several things, including money. Because I probably will have to fight somebody who stole my website. Anyway, it's a long story. But for this project, at least I'm about to get finished. Once I get finished reading it, I'll go back and make everything uniform the way that I've been doing it. I think I started out with some really crappy ways of indicating, the poem and everything. And I just would like to make everything uniform, and that will take a considerable amount of time. Once that's done, I want to embed each of these poems in the correct poem that is in the blog, which is ANACHRONIZMS, ANACHRONIZMS.blogspot.com. I say that loud, Z, because it's not the normal way to spell anachronisms here in the United States. And so, yeah. It's a very personal project, very diaristic. What do I call it here at the top of the? Right now, I call it, and I like to change it every once in a while. An anachronistic, meaning the way I started it was I was taking old diary entries and going chronological with them. It really started with a breakup, so I had just broken up in this particular piece. I was just reading my old diaries for some reason. I was living by myself, as I am now, but not for anywhere near as long as I did. I was dating then with people that were local, and I also had lots of friends. Two things I don't do or have anymore here in the city. Sadly, that's all I'll say about that right now, because I say a lot about it. Just picked up a diary, started reading. Noticed that I had just gone through a breakup, and it was like literally the most smooth, most logical, easy breakup of a person I was with for 5 years, whom I still respect, even though he also does not talk to me. Anyway, that's beside the point. So yeah, it's really hard for me not to. I do have a chip on my shoulder about this. That's the fact that I've lost everything, and it happened during the worst time in my life. I was evicted. I was going through a breakup that was really horrible to me after 10, 11 years, and they left me with after promising that they would help me until I got through whatever I was getting through and getting a job, they left me without a telephone and with having to pay all my rent. And no money. After a very recent promise that no matter what, they'd make sure that I was okay. So at least I had that kind of like. Anyway, it was really rough. And the process of being evicted was long. I didn't get a job. I was literally sick, from the whole. Then disappeared, and horrible things I learned that. That were basically showed that everything was a fraud that I thought was a very real thing. So anyway, and still also there's a chip. I have a chip on my shoulder about that as well. But it's in the past, and I certainly, I don't necessarily wish him well, but I do I am over it for the most that part. For the most part, it's the friends thing that really bugs me. But anyway, yeah, that's very revelatory, and you'll hear it in the poetry. So I might as well say it in a more just congenial way. And I do try to be funny about the whole thing. But I've been stuck. I was homeless for 2 solid years, almost two years. 6 months of those was on the street while I was working a job, a cubicle job. I've done white collar work since the beginning of my career, and I'm an executive assistant, and I'm looking for a job, and I'm doing tons of interviews. And last time I had a real job, a job that lasted longer than a week, it ended in June of last year. So I've done dozens of interviews and put out hundreds of resumes since then, even with the 3 months of recovering from cancer surgery about in March of this year. This year is 2023. Today's the October the 24th, and I will then now proceed to read without giving more silly information away. But I think all that information is somewhat relevant, especially right now as I'm just going through the bureaucracy of I have no money whatsoever, absolutely none. And coming up, and I don't even know if I'll have any in November because I've been cut off from general assistance here in the city. What little teeny amount that I get, like $400 a month after rent. And just for working over the period of 3 months, 10 days for $26 an hour. Doesn't that seem, if the whole point is that this is to help you through, the general assistance people are not the people that are helping you. They're not at all the people that are helping you. They're just doing their job, and their job is horrible, is like horrific to the people that they're doing the job for. Sometimes it certainly has been for me. That's been my experience. All of those things are true as far as I'm concerned, and maybe other people have different experiences. I'm sure they do. I'm very grateful to have this place, but I've almost lived here for 5 years, and I'm starting to feel very unsafe, and I won't even begin to tell you the problems that I've been having here, which have been crazy. But this is a longer poem, and that's why I kind of was pausing, because if they're poems in under a minute, then they get really, YouTube puts them out there. But nicely enough, I think it's probably some of the subscribers choose to listen to the longer poems sometimes before they even I don't know, they get right off the bat read before before YouTube starts to pawn these things off in people's algorithms that couldn't either care less about poetry, or they think is like fits the bill or whatever. And I don't think they know what quite to do with my these pieces, and I don't even know what I'm doing really, but I did want to read all these things. I've never read them all, and from beginning to end, and I'm still not reading them from beginning to end. They're anachronistic. I don't think they necessarily. There is something to be read, something to the chronology of them, that's for sure, because I've read each month chronologically, and I can see what. It's interesting from many angles, but I post them in a non-chronological order, which probably would drive me crazy if I were reading them, but I just feel like that's the right thing to do. When I've published them, at least most recently, I published them in non-chronological order, the ones that I've done. This is Saturday, July the 1st, 2023. It's, like I said, less than 3 months away, and I'll be caught up. Probably about three months and whatever, given the time it's going to take for me to do this. But I sit down and do a whole month almost per day lately, and then post them. It takes a while to get them all posted, and there's a lot of them that haven't been posted yet officially, but I migrate them over to YouTube and whatnot. Okay, so I've already talked for 9 minutes. This will probably take 5 or 4. Sorry, this will be one of the longest recordings. But anyway, Saturday, July the 1st, 2023, I posted Anachronism 4003. They're all in Roman numerals. And 4003 in Roman numerals is MMMMIII. It doesn't have a title, but it does have a quote. It's sort of the title, actually, the way that I put this, because I don't usually bold it unless it's the title. And it is the subject line of an email that I received, probably a spam, which is, "This shirt is a second skin. It's perfect." And true or false, don't we all adore perfection? I've been waking up when I wake up these days with a groggy head. That's a new one. It started a while back. With brain fog. There's a blast from the past. With not a morning person head, and I'm not a morning person. At least not when I have the structure of a job. When I have this, with a not morning person head, and I am not. Oh, I say it right. And I'm not a morning person. Sorry. At least not. This is the first poem I've read today, so I'm a little clunky. And I've been sending resumes out all day and talking with legal people about stuff that I have to deal with and like worrying about money. So it's a high anxiety moment. At least not when I have the structure of a job. And I have a 30-year career, solid, as an executive assistant. Granted, I had no idea that one might have a career as a glorified secretary when I was first seated at a desk with a nameplate that announced to the poor folks who might encounter it that this was who I was, that this is who I am. But it is, or was. I'm not even the least bit cubicle resistant. I'm also not cubicle dependent. In fact, I can take any space of around 4 by 5 feet and turn it into a workspace. I say that even though I'm getting really tired of this very tiny apartment. Happily, most days. Just not this morning. And the reason is simple. It's because presently and for the last year I've had no cubicle of residence. Therefore, I have had no semblance of daily structure at all. And when that happens, I gravitate toward being a night owl, which is no fun at all, if you ask me. So for a year, I've only one residence, and it's not an office, is no employer. In fact, it's barely even a residence, my home away from work. It's tiny, it's cheap, and it requires an extraordinary amount of work just to maintain this residence. Chalk that up to just another reason I've had no home of employment at present. Truth be told, or come to think of it, it's been longer than a year. My last job, which, like the ones I've had over the past decade, was a temporary job, a contractual obligation. Except I had an entire office to myself that was larger than this apartment. One that upon entering or exiting I could lock. One that was mine and only mine, so to speak, of course. That is a tag I could very well add to every single sentence I present, so to speak. Anyway, in my so-called successful and thus far long career, I've only ever had one of those besides the one that I had last year. A real office that was all mine, so to speak, one other time. And while in general, I'd much prefer the illustrious career of a person who performs his duties in a cubicle to one who does so in a spacious office with a beautiful view and a door that one might look upon either entering or exiting, it was a real, because of the fact that usually those folks are executives whom I support. So that's what I mean. I'm much happier being an executive assistant than the executives that I support. To one who does so in a spacious office with a beautiful view and a door that one might lock upon entering or exiting. It was a real joy having one of those 3 months of contractual labor. One for those 3 months of contractual labor. Speaking of temporary employment, which I found myself niched into about a decade ago, tough times, etc., and unexpectedly, in much the same way I found myself in this career, that has at least intermittently given me no small amount of success and financial independence, or should I rather say that I have given to it a right goodly amount of success? Yes, well, perhaps that is the primary reason I have no job at present, because I've never been harder at work, looking for work, as I have since left. I left that last lovely but temporary job in which I had an actual office. Full-time permanent work, that is. No more temporary assignments. I've simply refused to even look at those in this past year. I'm now to the point of desperation in which I do look at some, but they have to be like a year in duration at places I really would love to work and high paying for me. Hence, look at me now. Anyway, I suppose that All this has been a way to say that I should shut up and get back to the business of finding a new cubicle of residence. Been doing that all day, so I don't feel so bad right now. Or perhaps I should run for office. President cubicle, perhaps. My chances might be just as good to land a job doing that. But if I'm being honest, that's just another way to draw out the time between now and when I can once again, and with entirely too much relief, say that I have a home of employment. Thanks for listening to this very long video, if you're still here. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry about my long-windedness. That's another story altogether, which I can talk about. It's a kind of a problem I have. Thank you.